Happy Monday! Welcome to Screen Junkies Universe. It's going to be a really good week this week because it's full of horror and scary things. Dan Murrell is here. Hello.
How are you? Welcome back.
Thank you. I've been gone. I've been out of town on a mission, movie, junket. I'm here with some of my favorite people, including Mr. Joe Starr. Missed you.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. And one of my favorite new colleagues and friends and professional associates, Keely Flaherty is here.
Hi.
I feel like I mispronounced your last name.
No, you did really, really well.
I did?
It's so funny because we worked together, but then today Roth was like, this is really embarrassing, but how do you pronounce your last name?
I know. I feel like I talk to you every day, 7 times a day, and you're one of my new favorite people. That's all true. Keely is amazing, and you're going to love her. So welcome to our show. We're going to talk about some fun things today.
Let's do it.
It is Halloween time, and what the people want to know is what should they be watching. There's only 3 more days that you can stream the things, but you know what? Halloween is a matter of a state of mind.
It is.
Right?
It really is.
You can keep Halloweening for months,
You can be
even
creepy.
years.
Creepy all the time.
Yeah,
Exactly. You
thank
can make that choice.
Yeah, and we so often do. So let's talk about the top things that are streaming currently and then some of our favorites. You have available for you original movies and shows. Are The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix, as well as The Haunting of Hill House, Stranger Things, Gerald's Game, and The Ritual. And movies that are streaming currently are Hellraiser on Netflix and Hulu, The Shining on Netflix, The Conjuring on Netflix, Train to Busan, yes, on Netflix, The Blair Witch Project on Hulu, Amazon Prime.
JTE's going crazy right now. It's like, I didn't know you were doing all the graphics at once.
I'm not watching because I'm reading, but I love that I'm doing this to him. Keep going, JT. See if you can catch me. Paranormal Activity on Hulu, Amazon Prime, Child's Play on Hulu and Amazon Prime. And I'm going to give a shout out about a movie that we talked about a movie we did on Screen Junkies Maine last week. So Bad They're Good horror movies. Jennifer's Body, which is not so bad. It is so good and so misunderstood.
It's so good.
I'm halfway through The Haunting of Hill House and loving it. Y'all tell us what you would be watching right now. What do you recommend, Dan?
Well, I'm watching a movie every day for Halloween.
Sure.
It's something we do every year. So I've seen a lot. We watched Child's Play. There's one, HBO Go has Drag Me to Hell, which I had never seen prior to watching it, and I thought that was interesting. There were some things that I really loved about it, and some things that I really didn't love about it. It was a nice mishmash of both. But it's a
very
lot of
Raimi movie.
It's a very Raimi movie, and I loved when it went super Raimi. And then there were some other things that was like, that doesn't seem like a good idea. So that was good. And then looking at some other things, It Follows is on Netflix, which is not a mainstream horror movie, but you're either gonna love it or you're really not gonna love it.
Like
I think.
so many horror movies, a metaphor for STDs.
Yes, very much so. There's one called, and again, this is not traditional horror, but there's one called The Invitation on Netflix.
That's great.
That is the slowest of slow burns. I mean, you have to, even for people that like slow burn horror movies, you really got to sit and be patient with it. But I think it's worth it in the end, and I love the way that where it goes. I loved, so I think that's a really interesting one. Carrie is on Amazon Prime. One of the all-time greats. Make sure you get the original, not the remake.
Yeah.
Nothing against Chloe
Grace
Moretz. Oops,
Yeah.
sorry. But the Palma movie is amazing. And then one that's it's not one of my favorite movies, but is super creepy is on Prime, is The Strangers, which has got Liv Tyler in it, and it's a great home invasion movie that I think's got some pretty effective scares. And also Hush, which is on Netflix, which came out a couple years ago. That's also a great home invasion movie with a twist. So all of those I would recommend.
Was the same, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the filmmaker that did Oculus? Didn't he do Hush as well? Billy, can you fact check me?
Yeah.
And then he also is the person currently behind The Haunting of Hill House. At least Oculus and is.
Yeah, it's Mike Flanagan.
Thank you.
Mike Flanagan.
And there's a through line there, actually. Karen Kusama did The Invitation, am I wrong?
I believe she did.
Yeah. She did Destroyer, which I haven't seen yet, but is coming out, and you've seen it.
I've seen it, yeah.
Good?
It is. It's really worth it to see Nicole Kidman. And it's very, very dark. It's super dark, very creepy, very, but it's more like it's a crime movie. You know, it's a
More
crime
so than
story.
horror.
More so than horror, but it is very, very dark, and it is low-key scary. It's super violent, but Nicole Kidman's great in it. Love Sebastian Stan forever. It's definitely worth seeing, and it's really interesting to see what Nicole Kidman does physically, like how they transform her. Her wig alone deserves an Academy Award.
Can we talk about wigs, both deserving and undeserving of awards?
I know
Because
you have a lot of
I have a
feelings
lot
about
of feelings
this.
about wigs.
I've been waiting for this for
Especially-
years.
I have a lot of feelings about Michelle Williams' wig,
Yep.
as you guys might have
Yep.
heard in Venom, but I also have a lot of feelings about, oh my God, Sue Storm.
Oh, Kate. Kate Mara.
Kate
Mara.
Mara's
Kate
wig.
Mara.
The
Okay.
Sue
Kate
Storm
Mara.
reshoots.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, good
that's rough.
God. It is like emblematic of everything that is wrong with that movie, that wig.
It's a rough one.
Wigs can make or break things. Speaking of wigs, Joe, and your hair, as we've talked about,
It's
yeah, you need no wigs.
Fake. It's
It is.
100% fake.
It is fake.
It's a wag.
Yeah, it's a wag.
It's a
100% made
I'm
of
sneaky.
Persian cat hair. Talk to me
That's why
about.
I sneeze around you all the time.
Yes.
Yep.
That is one of 5 reasons why you sneeze around.
My eyes started like getting itchy and red when Joe started working here. That makes sense now.
Yes.
Karin Kusama is actually going to come back around later. I was foreshadowing.
While you were away, I made a point to do a lot of Charlie's Angels related material, and we all pitched our own reboots, and she was the director for mine.
Oh, great. I'm glad that we focused in on what we do best, and that is
Really clicky, heavy
yeah,
Charlie's
hi-
Angels.
heavy IP
Stuff
Charlie's
that's really going to
Angels.
succeed in SEO.
The SEO CEO says, Joe
Charlie's
Starr, what
Angels.
am I watching right now?
Top 10 Charlie's Angels.
I
Yes.
watched The Apostle, which is a spooky little monster, scary movie starring Dan Stevens. It's fun. It starts to get really Sam Raimi-y towards the third act, which is like the best part. Once it starts to go like, okay, this is full on ridiculous, like Evil Dead level of violence, you're like, okay, I'm in, and then the movie ends. But once you get there, it's fun, and Dan Stevens is great, and within like the next 3 years, he's going to have one of the best. I'm just going to sit down and watch all of Dan Stevens' independent movies. That's going to be a great, like, weird day to just
Are you still
binge.
watching Legion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, still on Legion.
Wow.
Yes, I have stuck with that weird show.
It's so strange.
It's so strange, but I think he's great. He
really
holds
is.
it all together. Who would have thought that Matthew Crawley from Downton Abbey could give you Legion and could give you The Guest and could give you something like The Apostle? Just
Yeah,
all just
remember he was
Yeah.
just
And he's the
pale,
beast.
Yeah, just
cousin
kind of
Matthew,
pale and
like, all
pasty and
buttoned
just
up
like,
and
oh, I don't know.
What can I do with my
To be
inheritance?
fair to him, Dan Stevens is the one who would have thought. That's why he was like, kill my ass off this
Yeah.
crippling show.
Yep.
I like Downton Abbey, but he felt like he wasn't being given enough room to breathe. And when you see the choices that he made afterwards, including
Yeah.
Legion, which I love still, you see why he felt that way.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
Madam, recommended a show to me over the last couple of months. You had it early in screeners, and we've been
Yes.
talking a lot about it. And then this Saturday, I sat down on my couch, horizontally, and with my cat, appropriately.
Really
and I
appropriate.
watched the whole thing, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
Sabrina, the reboot.
Yep, all the episodes, so good. Yeah, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. It's so good. It's by the same guy who does Riverdale, but it's like tonally and visually similar, but it's a very, very, very different kind of show. It's more of a horror show than a teen drama, and it's based on a comic series that he did that's like super violent and really, really bloody. And going into it, I was like, there's just no way that they're gonna like do something that's aimed at like a younger teen audience. It's gonna be like that gruesome, but they absolutely 100% did. It's absolutely fantastic. It's so good. And it was originally gonna air on the CW, but then they took it over to Netflix, which I think is why they were able to do like pretty much anything they wanted with this show.
Oh yeah, there's so much murder.
It's so much murder. It's a very, very murderous show. Magic, dark,
Lots of
bloody,
sex.
so much sex. There's a witch orgy. It's
Was it just one?
It's like a really good
just
checklist.
one. Yeah, just one. It really takes a lot of boxes for me on a personal level, but also I feel like on a holistic Halloween
Yeah,
level.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what is Halloween without an orgy? Nothing.
Nothing really.
Nothing. But it's great. I can't recommend it enough.
Also, you wrote a piece that I'm going to recommend that everybody read, and we will put a link in the description below for Fandom about it.
But
it's
please
such a
read
good
it.
idea. It's such a good take on the show, which there's a lot of ways to do I'm not going to call them hot takes because they're smart takes.
I don't like that term.
I don't like
I
hot
don't either,
takes.
but, like,
I hate
what
when people
is-
like, I'm not interested in
what's
your,
the
I do
better
a review
term?
and like, I'm not interested in your hot take. Like, it's a well thought out
But I
review.
feel like
It's
I
not my
still,
hot take on
I
anything.
still say it. I'm like, I hate this term, but hot take, because there's no other like comparable term, like smart piece.
Should
like,
we come up with one?
That's
But I think like a
Like
hot
now?
take is like something you tweet like 3 seconds after walking out of a movie.
Let me
You
say
think-
what,
Or
well, I'll
when
tell you
you-
when I like that term. I like it when it's Billy's new podcast, Hot Takes with Billy Business.
Oh,
That's when I like that term.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Billy. No offense, but
Dan, every time you just shit on me, you're like, no offense, but I just hate everything you stand for and do. I can't wait to have you on the show.
When have I ever done that? When have I ever done that, Billy?
I just don't like Billy as a person.
All right. Well, contradicting everything everybody just said, I love Billy the Business, and he has a great new podcast, Hot Takes with Billy Business. But let me get back to plugging this.
Yeah, let's plug this
I
right
just
here.
like
Shut up, Billy.
I just kind of like took a left
For
turn
once.
plug, getting
For
back
once
on
in
the
your
highway.
life.
I thought it was a very smart take on it, on the show and the series, which was about how it reflects Gen Z.
yeah. The new generation, the young
You're so
generation.
proud of yourself.
I don't have a lot of things,
They're younger than millennials.
and I've got
Mm-hmm.
I've got a few things.
You have so many things.
You have your cat.
I got my cat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're doing great.
For the reminder. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I think so. The youngest generation right now, Generation Z, the oldest person, the oldest group, they're like around 21 years old. So they're super young. The cutoff date for millennials being born is 1997. So these are like kids who are growing up, you know, getting ready to vote if they're not voting already. They have a bunch of new like media that's aimed at them. They've grown up with screens, they've grown up with Twitter, they've grown up with Tumblr. So it's just really interesting to see how creators are kind of gearing content toward them more and how they kind of are tackling themes that appeal to that generation specifically. And they're big. Like by 2020, they're going to comprise like 40% of all consumers, and they're going to have like a population of over 2 billion. So they're going to be really, really powerful as consumers of media and of TV shows and movies, blah, blah. So the show is really interesting. Like it has, you know, a character who's pansexual, and sexual, you know, identity and sexual fluidity is a big thing that teens now are talking about. And in the studies that we did for the piece, it's like 38% or something of this generation doesn't think that gender defines a person. So they have a pansexual character in the show, Ambrose, who's like
So hot.
super hot. He's like the hottest. And then they have a character, Susie, who's going through like a gender transition. She calls it he. So Lachlan Watson, who plays Susie, is an actor who's 17 years old and prefers male pronouns. So he calls it a queer journey. So it's just really interesting to see how they incorporate that kind of stuff. And like, it's cool to have a cause now. So much of the show is about like young people being vocal about stuff they believe in, and then having orgies and eating
Sure.
their own hearts and
Yeah.
casting dark magic.
Wait, is
Yeah.
that what they're into? Is
I
that what
really think
Generation
that's what they're into.
Z
They're
is
cool.
doing?
I
Yeah,
don't know
they're
if you knew
super
this.
cool.
Mostly
Yeah,
blood
like,
orgies and causes.
When they're not eating Tide Pods, they are eating hearts. And I think
Exactly.
that is
Yeah.
like the
Exactly.
defining.
And it's so weird because like when they're this young, you don't have a ton of information about them.
Yeah.
Like you don't really live in the same spaces past the age of like 25 as like, you know, 15-year-olds. So it's like they eat Tide Pods and like what's the deal with Zendaya and Michi? Like no one really knows.
I know Zendaya is Michi. I'm cool.
Dan, it's
I'm
very hip.
hip.
You are Dan.
I know what's
one would
going
argue
on
that.
with
No
the
one
kids
would
these
argue that.
days.
Finger right on
Right
the
on the
pulse.
pulse.
Not
Yeah.
old.
Yeah, not old at all.
I think it's really interesting because the show very much operates the way that you're discussing in terms of tapping into that, but also tapping into larger themes of like power and who has it and who doesn't.
And teen girls finding their own power,
Yeah.
and teenagers in general finding their own power and embracing that and figuring out like what you want to do with your life. Like, do you want to
ins
be
and
a
outs
witch?
of witch
or,
court.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Witch trials.
Yeah.
The legality of like ownership of your own soul.
How
Yeah.
much of the camera frame you can just put a blur over for no reason.
It's weird.
Which is
Shot for
something
shot.
that
Who
which is
knows?
something that Joe doesn't like, but I actually kind of appreciate in the show because it's giving it. I think usually when the camera's blurring out, it's in a moment where Sabrina is either in touching in on the magical realms,
Or just eating a meal.
or eating. Oh no, or she's in a state of confusion. Like there's.
It's like a metaphor
It's
for,
like a metaphor for stuff.
like being a teen and figuring out who you
Just
are and not
everything's
having
blurry.
clarity.
Just not being able to see anything.
Speaking of blurry
Smart.
and metaphors,
it's a class
I'm
up.
going to talk about one of our greatest actors, Megan Fox. I'm kidding. I know how we all feel about Megan Fox. However, I am going to make a pitch for a movie that I actually think was way ahead of its time and incredibly misunderstood, very poorly reviewed at the time that it came out. And not for everyone, but definitely for me, which is Jennifer's Body, which you can watch on HBO Go. Karin Kusama made the movie. It was written by Diablo Cody, which people have mixed feelings about, which I get. It's Amanda Seyfried. Seyfried? Whatever. And literally, this is the best performance I've ever seen Megan Fox give. She is so totally committed to this role. It is an incredibly effective allegory for a female teen sexual awakening.
Yeah.
And it is just campy and silly and over the top and gory and fun, and I think hugely misunderstood. I love this movie. So if you have HBO Go and you want to check it out, if you haven't, or if you want to rewatch it, I really highly recommend watching Jennifer's Body. Something else that I watched again recently was Child's Play,
Poor Megan.
Yeah.
which
I like her.
I like her too. I do too. I
Me-
think she gets a bad rap.
I think
Yeah,
Megan
I
Fox
really
is
do
due
too.
her Kristen Stewart reboot.
Yeah.
Because
that's
she's good
smart.
in Jennifer's Body. She's also really good in The New Girl.
And like, I will stand for her in Transformers forever.
Yeah.
I think
Well, she
she's
wasn't
great.
given a lot to do.
Exactly.
I can't
She
go that
wasn't
far
given a
just
lot
because
to
of
do.
the
doing-
Transformers.
She's
but-
doing all she can, guys.
But I will say,
I mean, when your direction
I'm gonna-
is do things like I would want to pour a hose on you, like
Put
that's
your
probably
butt in the
like
camera.
the most
That's
direction
not
she
the
got
most
from Michael
Exactly.
Bay.
It was a
direction
lot
you
of
could
up
imagine,
butt.
yes.
A lot of up butt. That
Be
was-
like a Van Halen video
It was
for
her,
me.
her outfits were
Right.
doing the acting. But the interesting thing is, like, I feel like she got that, and then Karin Kusama got that, and Diablo got that about Megan Fox, and they're playing on that in
Yeah.
Jennifer's Body. They're playing into and against that about Megan Fox in that movie. Like, at the time, it understood who that actress was. So another one. I'm sorry, I'm boring you.
No,
Another
you're
one
not.
that I
I'm
really
sorry.
like-
I'm stretching, literally.
He's
Just,
too
I'm
young for
stretching my
this.
arms.
He's a teen and he has no attention
Yes,
span.
I am my Generation Z
15.
short
wanna try
term.
pod?
Dan just wants his
yes.
devices.
Where's my screen time? I need screen time.
I want to FaceTime my bros and sisters.
Yeah, I'm late for my Google Hangout. No, no, nobody ever did that. No
Google
generation.
Hangout for people over
think they
40,
did.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Google
Hangouts.
Hangouts. Yep.
Ugh. Did you guys see Child's Play?
Yeah, I just watched it as part of our Halloween thing.
We recently rewatched it, and I have to say, Christopher Sarandon's Brooklyn accent makes that entire movie work. It is insanity.
glue.
It is the most 80s of the 80s movies. Nothing about it makes sense. It is completely stupid and over the top. I love it so profoundly. It's weird. It's especially campy.
I did not notice it when I was watching the movie.
The Brooklyn accent?
No.
No,
It was the doll was garnering most of my attention.
fair enough. It's a very charismatic doll.
It is.
You
It's
guys
got a
have
knife.
watched a really good one, though, is The Haunting, and this is bringing back to the director I was talking about, The Haunting of Hill House, which is a movie that is not unlike Oculus, a metaphor for a very dysfunctional family, and a really fucking creepy movie. That's why.
Oh, boy.
That's your one.
They always
Yeah.
come when we're not expecting it.
Yeah.
Like they come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
She's out of practice.
I am.
You're usually good about fudging or frapping
Flipping.
or whatever you
Frolicking.
said. Yeah, there
It's
it
a
is.
frolicking good time. Joe
Hi.
has finished it. I'm on episode
have.
5. Keely has finished it.
Yeah.
You guys weigh in with your thoughts.
Ooh, it's good. It's like watching it. I don't know if I'm more afraid of like ghosts or my own feelings because it's very much like it's a family drama, but it's also a ghost story,
I will
literally and figuratively.
I keep trying to skirt around my feelings about this show because you have not finished it yet and you are very invested in it. Again, I think episode 6 is the best episode of television made
Which
this
one is
year. That's the funeral.
Okay, all right.
It's an amazing episode of television. I think your feelings on the show depend on what you wanted more out of the show. If you wanted a 6 Feet Under-ish family drama, or if you wanted a really, really scary haunted house / The Haunting adaptation, because that's the pitch. those sandwiched together. And if you want this or if you want this is really going to depend on how you feel ultimately about the show.
And it's very theatrical. Like talking about episode 6, Netflix did a little behind the scenes snippet of it, and they had to do, I mean, just obscenely long shots that were choreographed, and it took them something crazy like 6 weeks to rehearse and choreograph everything. So it's very, very theatrical, and the production value is unbelievably polished. And it's just really scary. Like I feel like it has an equal number of like jump moments, if you like those, as it does like creepy sit with you 6 weeks later, oh my God, what's that in my bedroom while I'm trying to sleep kind of scare.
It's definitely a ghost.
And I also think it's really smart to liken it to 6 Feet Under, because it is like that, but more supernatural. That's exactly what it's like.
Oh, and both Sabrina and Hill House feature a family of
Snapping
Raccoons.
people?
What's going on?
Conjuring
I'm
ghosts?
forgetting.
This is great entertainment television, Roth.
Thank you.
The
You know what I'm talking
thing.
about?
Scat singers.
Mortuary. They're mortuaries, but
Oh,
the
yeah,
word
yeah.
is the active,
It's a
mortician.
Mortician. It is it's spelled mortuary. That's correct.
Welcome back.
I think
I'm
one
very
show
not there.
focuses more on the morticians and one show is a little less
Also a
titian,
family of
but yeah.
raccoons.
Yeah. I was like,
Also a
right.
family of raccoons.
But it's so good. It really is worth binging. I actually don't want to tell people to binge it. I want to tell people to watch like 1 to 2 episodes a day and kind of, so I think you're
That's
doing it
how we
right,
did
Roth,
it.
to like kind of savor it, because if you binge it all at once, you won't really take in all of the details of it. And they have ghosts like hidden in the show that aren't like pop-out ghosts, they're just literally there.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things that we noticed too. Even the first episode, you see how subtly it's going to be done. Like the first ghost that appears, she's very much in the background, but they've also had an opening and closing of doors. But there's also ghosts that you're not sure if it was really there, because there's one in one of the children's room, and he claims initially in the show, this is right away, that he's never seen a ghost. But you're 90% sure in one of the shots there's been one standing behind him.
And that has so much to do with that character.
Yeah.
So like the production value is so thorough, but also how they use supernatural elements to illustrate deep-seated characteristics in each character and to differentiate their emotional journeys. I think it's a work of art.
Yeah, that's why the show, I think, ultimately, regardless of how you feel at the end of the journey, I think it's worth watching. The amount of focus paid to character, the writing. I think the best horror movies are the ones when you're invested in who's being spooked or spooked.
I agree.
And I mean, this one is fantastic because of that. The amount of care put into every character.
Without spoilers, how did you feel about the ending? And
Oh,
without
let's-
spoiling anything.
I will spoil it that way, so I'm just
Okay,
it's
all
gonna
right.
keep being very
It's
vague.
so interesting. I'm dying for you to finish it.
Just
like take your
dying.
time, but also finish it. But take your time. But speed it up.
Oh, I'm not going to be able to stop. I fell asleep last night during episode 5, which if you guys seen it, that's Nell's episode.
Oh, yeah.
And then I woke up just in time. I had figured out that Nell and
Don't just spoil.
I'm not
I
going to
haven't
spoil
even
it.
started.
There's nothing, but the point is
These are not spoilers.
These are not spoilers. But there's a very beautiful, I think, metaphor in there about menacing yourself. Which is true for most people. We menace ourselves more than anybody else could possibly menace us, for the most part.
Self-sabotage.
I'm my own Dennis.
Suicidal ideation.
All of it's in there.
It's fascinating.
He also made Oculus. Did you see Oculus?
I have not seen Oculus.
So Oculus
I
is
don't-
also about.
Or have I? I might have.
It's the one Karen Gillan is in it with a rough American accent, but still a good performance.
I think I might have seen Oculus.
If you got space, if you haven't,
It's
and
very-
you got space on the
And
31
Katie
days.
Sackhoff is in it
Maybe.
as their mom.
Yes.
Did you
I
see
have
it?
seen
You
Oculus.
see it? Okay, so
I'm
that's the
sorry.
same-
I lose track sometimes. We
Yeah.
do 31 days
It's
every
a
year,
lot.
so
It's a lot of horror.
I mix them up in my head.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure now that I have seen Oculus. Yes.
Oculus is sort of, so that's also about this very broken, dysfunctional family, but at
Yes,
the
that's
same
right.
time, it's a complete horror show, and it works on both levels, which is pretty rare because typically you walk away and it's either the Babadook was 100% a metaphor, a great one, or it was 100% actually happening. And I think that both Hill House and Oculus, which is not as good as Hill House, but I really, really like that movie. sort of managed to do both at once. So highly recommend that you check it out, Dan, and come back and talk with us.
I have a misunderstood horror movie that I would like to vouch for.
Yeah.
It's not on a streaming service.
Do it.
I don't want to break the rules. Is that okay?
No, Dan, do it.
I watched it last night again. It had been a while since I saw it, and it's not amazing, but I think it gets a bad rep. Psycho 2.
Ooh.
I watched Psycho 2 last night, and I really think I know a lot of people have problems with it because it takes the story in different places, and they're like, first of all, no, it does not hold a candle to Psycho, but that's just
What does?
that wasn't going to happen. That was never going to happen. But a lot of people kind of lump it in with all the other, like, oh, Psycho, and then all the sequels were terrible. Psycho 2 is another one that's just like you have to be patient with it. And there's some acting issues with it that I will acknowledge. But if you actually look into it, it's a very different kind of very sad story. Very about this guy, Norman Bates, who is trying to rebound from his tragic life that he's had, and how people can either support that or not support that. And sort of like the lines blur in that movie between what's happening and what's not happening, why things are happening, who's doing things. And I really do think if you like the original Psycho, and I'm not saying like you should count this as like canon, but if you would like kind of like an Elseworld story of like maybe here's one thing that could have happened after the first one, I would recommend Psycho 2 because I think that it has some really interesting things going for it, and it takes it ultimately in a very, I think, cool place for the mythology of it. I would say if you've been on the fence about checking out Psycho 2, check out Psycho 2.
All right, Psycho 2, a recommendation. Not for the remake by Gus Van Sant.
No, please don't seek out the Gus Van Sant remake. No.
Most useless remake
This is
ever
made in 1983. Anthony Perkins is back.
Yeah.
Vera Miles
I feel
is back.
like I've seen it, but I cannot remember. Is there a convent situation happening, or am I conflating that with another thing?
Not really, no.
Okay.
It might be something else.
Okay. I might be doing a Friday the 13th. It's a crossover in my mind.
It's very
but
possible.
That you should make
That I should
into a
probably
movie.
There was a Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes, it was
convent.
this because that's how
yeah,
Freddy
his
was
mom
his
was.
mom
Yeah,
and the-
yeah. That was
Okay.
that was a Nightmare on Elm Street.
Thank
There's
you.
a convent in the show that has taken my attention away from watching scary things like I was supposed to be. But then Daredevil season 3 went and was very good, and so we stopped watching scary things and cranked through that.
It's like a runway. I have 8 shows, all
Yep.
just
backed
Daredevil,
up.
Making a Murderer, Hill House, all just like lined up that I
Move
have
Hill
yet
House
to watch.
further up the queue.
Yeah, and move Sabrina further up too.
I don't know. I maybe it's good that I never watched the original. I never watched the one
They're
way back
nothing
when.
alike.
So.
It's so funny because when they first like announced the news, not to make this about Sabrina again, but like when they announced the news, everyone was like, "Oh, it's like a reboot." It's really not. It's got nothing to. They're both based on the Archie comics, so like, and that's where the parallel
Well,
ends.
the Archie comics, if you want to read just some really weird, cool, fun comics, at some point, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, Archie
Afterlife.
Comics was like, hey, you know what? No one reads Archie comics
Let's make it
anymore.
horror.
Let's make them crazy.
They're
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
But that's how Riverdale got started too, because the same guy who does Riverdale, who does Sabrina, he did Afterlife with Archie, which is like a crazy comic series about what would happen if the
Zombies.
zombie apocalypse came to Riverdale. It's really good.
Yeah.
And then
Like,
Chilling
none of these
Adventures-
should be good, but all of them
But they all
Yeah.
are. It's so weird because
Predator
it's such,
versus Archie should not have been good.
But it is.
But he also really understands those characters.
He
and
does.
It's a show because I had a trunk full of Archie comics as a girl. I loved Archie comics. And it's a show
Like a car
that
trunk? What kind of trunk?
do you remember like trunks, like wood trunks? Do you know what I'm saying? And they
Like
would
a
have
hood
like
I'm from
like a
Generation
hood.
Z, and I
Got
don't.
You don't. Yeah, it's kind of like a Kindle, but physical.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
So it'd be like car
large, and really, but,
I just had a
it's
different.
like
I had teen punk rock in
Right,
New York,
dude,
like
nothing-
selling comics out of her
Yeah.
car.
Shoot into them and drive around
Yeah.
and read Archie comics.
I need my cigarette money, man.
you know
Yeah.
what though? Both those things
money
went
for
together,
smokes.
and it's not unlike the new Riverdale series. And both those things can go together. I was in fact selling my Archies for. No, I never would have sold my Archies for cigarettes. I got my cigarette
you
money
did.
by stealing.
I just stole
Come on.
cigarettes. I wouldn't pay for a cigarette.
You have to pay for them because they're behind the counter, but you steal the other things. I'm kidding. I was a very good kid.
She was a monster.
But I think he has this really uncanny ability to both in Riverdale and in Sabrina reflect on the different generations
Yeah.
of those characters. But they're definitely outside of our world.
And they're outside
know?
of time, too.
Yeah.
It's like they're based on these comics that are perpetually in the 50s, but the show doesn't take place in the 50s. And the production designer for Sabrina was like, it's a timeless set. Like,
Yeah.
it's not tied to any specific era. But it looks like Grease, and it also looks like Riverdale, and it also looks like a CW show.
And it also looks like the Salem Witch Trials
yeah,
and like
exactly.
crazy collars. It's very cool, aesthetically speaking. So check out all of these things.
Yes,
Let
yes,
us
yes.
know what your favorite Halloween shows, if it's Daredevil, that's okay.
Yeah.
Or movies are. Do you like the funny ones? Do you want a little Gremlins? That's a Christmas movie. Are you with me on that, Dan?
Actually, I'm preparing some stuff for charting today, and I am encountering that very
Argument?
question: is Gremlins part of the horror genre? I'm leaning yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's horror
Is
comedy.
Ghostbusters?
But is ooh.
See,
Horror
this is
comedy,
the hard.
but
This is the tough
Ghostbuster-
thing
Oh,
with
this
horror.
is tough. I feel like Gremlins 100%. Is this like a debate?
It's me. It's an internal debate that I'm now externalizing
Okay.
as I am trying to compile some information regarding the history of horror. There are some films like Ghostbusters, which I tend to shift more toward the comedy side, but Gremlins is one that I'm just like, where does that fall? But I
Gremlins is
think
very
it counts
dark.
in the horror. I think it
I
counts in the horror
absolutely think
genre.
Gremlins. Ghostbusters is tough though.
Ghostbusters is big. Gremlins, I
think that's a
think,
comedy.
because of the story of Phoebe Cates' story,
Yeah.
puts it solidly in like dark horror territory.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like her requiem for a family, and it's just amazing. Gremlins, I would say, is horror, but it's also a Christmas movie. It's a horror
it's
Christmas movie.
Yeah,
definitely
it's a Christmas movie in the way that Die Hard is a
I was
Christmas
gonna say,
movie.
just
Yeah.
like Die Hard,
Yeah.
it is a Christmas movie.
And The Nightmare Before Christmas. Come at
Thanksgiving.
me. It is a Christmas
It is
movie.
an Easter movie.
Notably.
Watch it for
It's notably Flag
Easter.
Day.
Yes, it is.
Everybody get flipped. All right, that's it. We solved it. Train to Busan is one that I haven't seen yet, but I hear wonderful
Ooh, it's
things
really good.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We watched it this year. It's
fun.
really good. I liked it a lot.
Good debate about that on Movie Fights last week.
There was, yeah.
So there are more horror things for you to watch. You can watch Movie Fights from last week. You can watch So Bad They're Good horror movies, in which we make some wonderful recommendations for you. Charting with Dan is later today. Honest Trailers commentaries. Keely, go read her article. We will have it in the description. Tell us where the people can find you.
You can find me on like Twitter and stuff.
Sure.
Like, where do I live on
Not
the internet?
Yeah, don't tell
physically.
them.
I would
Yeah,
not
don't
do
lie.
your
Here's my
address.
do
address. Yeah, I'm at Twitter. It's just my first name and my last name. That's my whole handle. And I'm only on Twitter. There it is. It's right on the screen for
Found
you.
it.
Done. My Instagram sucks, so I'm not gonna plug that. Just Twitter. That's it.
I wasn't
Your
gonna
Twitter
say
game is
anything.
really good.
I wasn't gonna say anything,
wasn't
but
gonna
like
say
your
this.
Instagram game is weird.
I'm
It's
not
pretty
even
weird.
kidding, but her Twitter game is on point. It really is. My
God.
Twitter game is terrible.
No, you have a great Twitter game.
No, it's the worst.
Oh, it's so good.
Definitely the worst. But you're really funny.
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
Thanks.
Dan.
I try.
Mm-hmm.
How's your Twitter game?
Yeah.
I've
how's-
never felt older than I have throughout the course of this episode.
No, Dan's like the most
Ancient.
popular person on Twitter here.
Me and Murrell are getting
true.
out of here to play some Pog.
exactly. I'm just.
You have great Twitter
thinking back.
game.
You're like the
don't-
most popular person here on
I'm
Twitter.
not-
What are you
I'm-
talking about?
I'm not, but it's not a game. I don't see it as a game. I'm just like
That's just
I don't
hard
know.
work.
No, I'm just like I don't even know what the game is. What's
You're
what are
smart
there
about
rules
it.
to the game?
No,
You're just
the
smart and you
way-
have a strong
I can break
brand.
it down. Ready? I'll just break down all of our Twitter games
Okay.
currently.
All right.
Keely restricts her tweets to only jokes, and they're really funny, and they're massively retweeted and liked, and they're awesome. And it's not
done.
unlike someone else I know that you should follow,
thank you.
named Louis Fertel, who's a comedian who's also really, really funny on Twitter. So her whole Twitter game is about her skills as a writer and a comedian, which are fantastic.
It's just about venting my existential dread in a way that is marketable.
yeah.
It's good.
See, that's what I do.
It's
on
in
Instagram.
Dan's game is he tweets like he doesn't overtweet. He's very clear about when he tweets, and it's usually to point to specific issues that are going on or thoughts about a movie or to like charting or a thing that he cares about.
It's very focused.
He's like
So
a
it's very
very
Like Dan
focused.
himself.
he's a very savvy critic.
Yeah, it's like very much defining him, I think, as a critic and a thinker about film. Joe's
Fair
Twitter
enough, okay.
game is all about interacting with people and about like being very open and talk, and it's much more of an open expression and an open exchange.
It's about reminding myself that I'm still alive.
Yeah.
I had to lift the mic up for that. I was like,
And mine is completely fragmented and changes course from week to week and does not know what it wants to be.
No, it's
and is
great.
largely confused.
Your Twitter game is great.
So they
this
all
week we
represent
got
us.
pictures of Rome. We got some great article
There's
retweets.
some good Rome pictures.
Most of your
Yeah.
tweets are subtitles from like The Artist, or like like most of your tweets. I'm like, I think that was just a line from like a European film, and she just tweeted it.
Really? I'll have to go back and look at that. That's our Twitter game, and I assume no one is watching this at this point. So the 5 of you that are, you're my favorite. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Everyone else sucks.
Bye.
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 Bye.